So I suggest jumping directly into the topics because it seems like we have quite some interesting discussion points for today. And as a small note, I possibly have to drop at the top of the hour because we have an architect meeting. So I'll have to sneak out a little bit earlier to make sure that I make that one. So there are a few read-only items. Yeah, feel free to go across them later as well. And Hayana, I moved your item first to the top because I felt like that's a pretty good point and that's important maybe to start from.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I was reading, I was going over the agenda, and now that we have all these different calls for UX review and UX critique, etc., I wanted to kind of check with everyone what they expect from this call and what is the overall goal and the strategy that we want from this. I think it's monthly, right? Yeah, this is a monthly call. And for me, in general, I think it's a moment, of course, to get together and see your pretty faces, but I also want to learn more about the common challenges and see where we can learn from each other and see where things overlap in the CI/CD department instead of the general like updates that we might want to give. And I see that Nadia added a point here, but I also wanted to hear from others. What's your expectation? What do you think um, we should we should be doing for this call? The format that we should take. Did you hear me at all?
A little bit. It was hard, but I followed.
Yeah, so to recall to make sure that everyone understood. So Hayana is basically, it's actually written there. I think it's a good point to understand what people are actually expecting from these calls, because maybe Hayana, your point is also about the fact that it seems like we're doing a lot of kind of casual updates. Usually I'm using this platform just to catch up with everyone and to talk about the topics that like I feel is important, and usually that are like items from me only. Maybe it sounds more like updates, and I would also like more product designers to share the challenges and discuss certain topics. Like for example, something that is very important right now, I feel like how to use the validation track on the board, maybe that's a nice example of that. So I partially agree with Hayana here. I added my points in the comments. Curious, what are you guys thinking? What are you expecting from these sessions?
I can go first if you can hear me. I have a similar expectation. I think that this is a time for us to be able to share each other's processes, workflows, but also ask questions about potential for taking over certain items of overlapping areas. A quick example of that is an issue where there's an issue that goes into the runner territory, and it is a backend issue apparently, and there's specific knowledge needed in order to be able to fix it, which the continuous integration team's backenders do not have enough Go experience to tackle it on their own. So this might be an opportunity for us, to bring it on in this call and see how can we fix cross-stage group plannings. But I would say that it's like incidental, right? The rest I would say is getting that feeling of being within a larger team and sharing those workflows.
Thanks, Dimitri. Mike, any thoughts?
Yeah, no, I like the format that it's kind of been in. I initially kind of viewed this meeting as like your forum to, speak holistically, and then also like just the socializing of us as a team together. But I will echo what Dimitri is saying there. I think we should have a dedicated like agenda item, or at least bullet point in the template to cross-stage interactions, because there just isn't a lot of time to do that, and we the other option would be scheduling like one-off meetings, but I don't think anybody else wants more meetings. So if we could cover those cross-stage issues here. So my suggestion would be, if anybody thinks there might even be a possibility of cross-stage interactions, just bring them up and discuss them here. We probably won't be able to go too deep on all of those, or else that's all this call will be. So maybe this would be like just a top layer, like, hey, just want to make you aware of this. If you think we need to go deeper on this, let's schedule, other interactions, async or meetings out of that. But I do think that would be a fantastic thing here that would help a lot.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I like the idea, Mike, about having like the standing agenda items. I suggested this in the retrospective for the kind of the review, the UX critique. But I think it would also be nice to have it here, like the critique more really a show and tell. But here we discuss maybe the planning and the strategy for what, not just what overlaps, but where the vision connects in CICD. I think that would be exciting.
Great points. Ian, Juan, do you want to add something?
Yeah, no, I was thinking about it, and I think like what I always expect from these meetings is like, like you, Nadia, have like a lot of visibility on like the issues that we're having on like our day-to-days, because you have one-on-ones with us, and like it's basically your job to like help us with all these things, but I only have like that clarity of like my issues. I don't know what's happening with like other people in this stage, like Dimitri or Mike or Ian or Rihanna. Like I don't know like what they are like experiencing, like in terms of like working with their PMs, or like working on their workflow issues, or like going through like research, recruiting, all these things where like sometimes I have like struggles a little bit because of like how fast we're growing. I never have visibility of that besides my own scope. So I was thinking that like maybe it's a good opportunity for people to bring up things so we can basically, like brainstorm solutions, because there might be like many overlapping issues, like maybe all of us were experiencing the same issue like in different ways. So maybe we can come up with like ways to like solve problems here together as a team. And then the other thing is that I think that will give me also visibility on how to like interact with other people if needed. Especially, there was a point in the read only at first, which is kind of like covering for other people when they're out. So covering, it's hard because like you don't have the full context of what other people are doing, but maybe these are good meetings for us to go and like understand what they're doing. And if there's an emergency, we have more context to go and jump in if we have to help, like especially when like people are like out of office and we need like some backup. So yeah, the way that I was thinking about it is more like I think might use the word forum, which I like. Yeah, but basically kind of like this state of affairs meeting of the stage in terms of design. How was a stage are we doing in design, and what we need to fix to move forward, At the end of the day, all of our groups are related.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that like we gotta be cohesive and move forward like as a monolith. So like we're moving everything in the right direction. So I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that makes total sense. And those all are, I think, great ideas. And think what I can try to do, I can just like make these sections and put it in the like template description for this session. So we kind of like, when we are preparing for this session, everyone can fill in items for the dependencies, for the like cross stage overlaps, and then for covering each other up, etc. Those are good inputs. And I will probably be pasting all of those updates if I want to. Maybe I should hold off, or just like as Hayana suggested, use a Slack and or put them in the read only.
Probably would also be a good time for give Lori the opportunity to. I wouldn't want this to turn into a planning and prioritization meeting for her time, but given the fact that like all of our resources a lot of times do funnel onto her plate, to give her a chance to be like, you know, express whatever, like
Yeah,
capacity issues.
yeah,
from her side.
I like that.
Constant capacity issues. Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think it needs to turn into like a planning meeting, but what I would love to hear is prioritizations, and to start having you guys tell me, hey, we're thinking about this. I need some answers to this. And that'll help me to know like who I need to help next. I'm going to everybody's meetings every day, every week. And if I can stop going to some of those meetings, I might be able to get some other stuff done. But it's like 4 hours of meetings. So if this meeting is something that I could prioritize and go to get some of that information that I'm hearing at these other meetings, I'm all for it. But I also don't want to turn it into Lori's meeting either, because this is really a good forum for everybody to get together and share what you're doing. Just like Juan said, like this is perfect to break down those silos that we tend to get into when we're really focused on our stuff all the time.
I really like that idea because like Lori, you work with all of us. It's basically kind of like piggybacking on like what I said before, but this is a good opportunity if you can, like if we can like give you like feedback. I mean, like I think I was thinking like one good way to do this is there's like kind of like having like an agenda where like we like maybe we break up the agenda and we have like a section for research. So like anyone who has like a topic that they want to touch base regarding research and put it on the agenda, and then like we can find like those overlapping things, and then you can give us a guidance to all of us, because I think like I'm pretty sure that you repeat yourself like many times just because like you're having like individual meetings. So like we are all here. You can just give us like very generic information about what's going on in research, and like things that are happening that we need to be aware of in this meeting as well.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, and just a reminder, this is a monthly call. I'm not sure how everyone feels about making, I don't know, bi-weekly or anything like that. But I think it would be cool if we could definitely combine it with, I don't know, either to happen before or after the planning session, for example, with our engineering team, so we have an idea of what's coming next. Or
It's actually bi-weekly, Hayana.
is
Sorry.
it bi-weekly?
Yeah. I think you recently changed that. We just had that in one of the previous sessions.
Never mind. Forget. No, it's okay. Never mind. Edit this from YouTube.
Okay. Amazing points. Thanks everyone. Yeah, and yeah, thanks Hayana for bringing this up. I think this is an important piece of feedback and conversation. And maybe so, hey, let me do a short quiz. For example, a question like, like my next point on the agenda, about like, I really wanted to see, to discuss, for example, working on the documentation as UX designers and PMs and product managers. So cool, Jackie, that you are in today, because you know I often hear this across stages, the issues with big documentation improvements, for example, being a big part of the UX showcase, or improving a certain experience. And where do you see, what is the best forum do you think I can place these discussions to happen if I would want to collect some of this feedback from you guys?
So from where do you want to get engagement from product managers in general? Or is it more like, how do you solicit action after you collect feedback?
If, for example, I want to have a conversation with you, Jackie and Orit, and all of the product designers on the team, is that, you know, because PM UX Weekly, I feel like it's siloed by the stage groups, and you know, whatever we discuss in one stage group, I have to repeat for another, or you know, we have to find a way to share that information, and I'm okay with doing that, but just trying to figure out what is the best forum for us to talk about those things.
So I think we still have release managers meeting from like a release stage perspective, but as we look at across CI/CD, I think that we might want to create an epic for every sort of cross stage initiative, kind of like what Access did around policy management and what I did for compliance. Secrets management is another one that I'm thinking about blowing up into an epic that's about collecting requirements across multiple stages. As it's so hard to look at all these issues in isolation and not view them as a collective when they belong to a bunch of different projects or a bunch of different teams. So personally, I think it should be handled like at an epic level that everybody is assigned to at the product design side. And then we solidify the direction, vision in that epic. And I also feel like universally instrumenting the Think Big meetings and maybe having like a monthly CI/CD Think Big meeting might be useful.
Yeah, I agree. I think we've been doing a good job with the Think Big sessions, and where we also invite the dedicated developers that also have the specific knowledge on some topics. But I would say perhaps not a call, because it would be difficult to schedule it with everyone. And I love the idea and the initiative that we already have with the epics, because then you really make it transparent, and you can cross-link and reference things there instead of a document on docs or anything like that.
I would
Yeah,
be
I
worried
could-
about another meeting. I would be worried about that. I don't think that that would be something I could commit to.
Yeah, I agree with us being, being critical about choosing to set up another meeting, yes or no. Let's look at those things, at those activities really closely and see if they can be done in some way or form asynchronous. And only if they cannot, let's set up a meeting.
Amazing. Oops, yeah, I'm not on mute. So then I will, let me try moving these items into the issues so we don't take precious time on this meeting. Okay with everyone? Did I understood it correct?
Can you repeat? I didn't hear. Sorry.
So if I'm understanding that correctly, that the suggestion from Jackie and that everyone seems to be supporting, if I would like to have a conversation about like UX and PM supporting better documentation, for example, my next point, that I should create an issue for that.
Yeah, it all starts with an issue or merge request. I'd say move there, and then maybe we can bring already the decisions made or something that has more foundation to a call if necessary.
Yeah, the biggest thing I find often with, like asynchronous retrospectives and those kind of things is that it often, I think I have to say this, it has a little bit of a downside because of the bystander effect. If we can make it so that we, have dedicated action points for everyone to tend to with a deadline, just brainstorming here, with a deadline attached to it, there's dedicated activity going to happen on those issues. Well, if it's just a general question like does somebody has a problem or does somebody know something, then you're always going to get this less of a feedback amount of feedback than if it would have been a discussion like this in a synchronous call. Somebody agree or just speaking?
I agree. I'm shaking my head. Yes. You're talking about the next point, right? About the retro discussions in general.
Yeah, sorry, Dimitri. I'm not sure if I understood that correctly. So could you summarize it again? And which?
Yeah, I was trying to get back to your question about like, hey, should we do this asynchronous or not? Because that was the question, right?
Yeah. So
yeah.
As I understood, we think that issues would be a good forum for that. It seems like that's a suggestion from the crowd.
Yeah, my only point there would be to add to that, like, I think that's a good idea. The only thing is that we need to get rid of the bystander effect if we do that. So it not just becomes like this issue with only questions in there without any without too much input from everybody. I feel like that is the thing that often happens with asynchronous issues like that they get deprioritized in priority by a lot of people, or that's a pattern I see with myself. Like, hey, I got other things to tend to as well. But if we have a dedicated thing to do for everyone involved, then we can quickly, put in the information needed and get the output we want from it. But it's just brainstorming on that.
Yeah, no, good point.
Yeah, we're not talking about retrospectives, right? That's a new agenda point. Are we?
No, we are not. Sorry, I'm actually adding this to the wrong part. I think that's Dimitri was answering to my question, like where, for example, where we discuss UX documentation support, or where do we talk about like product foundation documentation experience, right? My two questions that I posted for today's meeting. I think that was referring to that, that we can move this discussion to the issues, and then Dimitri was raising the concern about async communication on that versus synchronous communication on these kind of questions.
Yes, thank you.
Let's try and let's come back to this again. So I will drop these two next points from me, these two that I'm highlighting, to issues if I, if I feel like that's important. So we don't take time on these meetings then. And what I would like to see for the next meetings, then I will create agenda points from for the sections as we kind of like discussed in this meeting. And then I would like to see a participation from everyone, of course. So then we go before these sessions and we put there the topics that we would like to discuss. And I will try to refrain from adding anything on my side. Cool. Okay, and then there was another point for me, Hayana, about the retrospectives, also the one that you've been trying to, I think, to talk about. So I've raised this question with a few people already, and it sounds like, again, it's another kind of session. We can use we can leverage time of the CI/CD bi-weekly meetings catch up as well. But I was thinking that it can be beneficial for us as the product designers plus user research to talk about the experiences that we are having as the designers, share the problems, share how we get out of the problems, because what I'm here cross stage is that the problems are pretty similar, and it's really interesting to hear how we are solving them in different stage groups. So I wanted to ask, to drop this question, and do you feel like we can borrow one of these sessions and turn it into a retrospective, let's say once per month, one per 2 months, however we want to define that?
Yeah, I'm gonna go first because I left a reply here. Yeah, I think it's a nice idea to use this call for retrospective moments. We tried this with the release team, where we allocate 10 minutes during one of our weekly team calls to go over the retrospective, the issue, and I put here in the thing that I think the mural is cool and stuff, but I would defer to leaving things on GitLab, because everyone can see and can contribute in the documentation. Everything is editable. Like what Dimitri said, no more meetings, please. But I think it's very necessary, and that's why I thought Dimitri was talking about the action items for this point. It's one thing that we struggle a lot in the beginning, was to assign DRIs or action items after our retrospective sessions, right? So we have the document or the issue, everyone goes and writes things, but how do we act upon those problems and those improvements? And I think that would be cool to spend time so that we can chat and learn from each other, but also see again where things overlap. So yeah, I would defer to using the issue itself for that when we go over it, instead of spending more time doing a board on mural that's gonna be outdated. But that's my personal feeling. So I think, oh, that's it. I don't think.
Anyone else want to mention
Agree
something?
there.
We can hear Dimitri.
We didn't hear you, sorry.
Did you hear me or not? I said I agreed with. I think it's a good idea to reuse one of those meetings for a retrospective dedicated to this meeting. Yeah.
Ian, Mike, Lori, anyone has anything to add?
I think it would be great
I'm
to have
good
a
for
little
now.
bit of a, sorry, Lori. A little bit of a retro, which is always fun. I would just prefer it to be in an issue, because that's how I do all of my other retros. So the switched context would just kind of be a little jarring for me.
Cool, thanks. Thanks for sharing that.
Oh, and maybe we can also, because I think our retrospectives, they close at the same time as the overall team's retrospectives, right? At the same, the 19th, or they should at least. Yeah, the UX ones, they close, I think, on the 17th, whatever, those dates. Yeah, just a heads up. Maybe look at the calendar, and we have a standing agenda item to do a retrospective every month.
All right, so I have to drop. I hope if I'm dropping, this meeting won't end. Sorry for leaving a little bit earlier. Thanks a lot for these discussions. I felt like it was super important. Feel free to stay for a bit more. I'm sorry for dropping earlier. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the weekend.
Ciao.